Mine.
Oh,
I said mine. Okay. I just hit record, so
sweet.
Mogul Minds episode, whatever. What's up?
Yeah, I think it's like what, episode 4 now,
Yeah,
3 something.
4. I think 4. What's up?
Not much, brother. How was your Christmas?
Good. Went down to my girl's house, Taylor, for she lives in Cincinnati. Went down there for a day, and then came back and pretty much just hung out with my parents and brother. Went to my aunt's house, and that was pretty chill. So yeah.
Your girl still lives in Cincinnati?
What's that?
Your girl still lives in Cincinnati?
Her family does.
Okay.
She's in Columbus.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. How about you?
It was pretty relaxed. We went to my mom's on Christmas Eve, and then had baby's first Christmas at home with just us. And then Bryn's mom came like towards the end of the night and had Christmas with him the next morning. She was from Indiana, so
Oh, okay.
pretty cool. So yeah, baby's first Christmas out the way, and it was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you spoil the young man?
Yeah. I don't think he's even like touched half of the things he got. He's just like
He's
overwhelmed
oblivious.
by it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll basically have Christmas like every other week for the next for the next month or so when he realizes like, oh, this is another one of my toys I can play with.
Awesome. Awesome. How's work going? Pretty chill?
It's been pretty chill. I actually basically just like shut down until the new year. I haven't really like started or scheduled much of anything that I didn't already have going. So just kind of prepping and planning for the beginning of 2021. Got some cool things that I'll be focusing on there. But yeah, like last week I didn't do anything, and pretty much the week before that I didn't do anything either. So
Nice.
just riding it out. And then I'm actually taking my siblings on like a little trip in January from the 3rd to the 7th. But then I'll actually kind of like get back to work, stop being a lazy
Sure. Well, that's kind of cool. Like, I think it's good to. So I've been thinking a lot about. I've heard a lot of people say, like, since the pandemic, that real bosses don't need to chase a check right now. And so I wanted to. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about this a little bit. You know, you put yourself in a position, and I feel like I'm in a position where I'm not chasing after money. It's like it's almost like it I've accepted and acted out and believe I believe and then I act out the mindset that like money just comes my way.
Right.
Wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I would agree that I don't necessarily, and you'll catch yourself in glimpses, but I wouldn't say like I worry about money or even have to scheme or plan about it. For me, I just know that I'm going to be successful, and I know that money is going to come because it's a representation of value. And so as long as I'm giving value, and that's what I'm focusing on, every day or every week, that the money will come. And I think though that may be an abstract concept when we're talking about business and money, we do it in our daily lives all the time because where some people may be like, oh, that's ridiculous, or they feel like they could never think that way. It's very similar to how we live our life, right? Some things just take time. For instance, it takes 21 years to become 21 years old, right? Like there's no workaround for that. But you don't wake up every day and like you wake up before you're 21 every day, and you know that, God forbid, something happened, to you early.
Sure.
But that basically I'm going to be 21 years old when it's time to be 21. You don't wake up thinking, oh my God, like, what am I going to do today to get one step closer to 21 or anything like that?
Yeah.
Now,
Stay alive.
right, exactly. I was just about to say, what we do take into consideration on that is like, okay, I'm going to be 21 years old when it's time, regardless. But how I show up as that 21-year-old can look very differently, right? How much knowledge I have,
Yes.
what shape I'm in, all those things. And so that's the way I look at it in business as well. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
not chasing money. Like, I'm going to always have the money that I need. It's not even a conversation. It's a non-starter. Like, of course money's coming, but what can I do each day to be adding more value and know that, hey, when the money comes, that I know what to do with it and who to help, and I'm integrous with it and all those things. And so that's what I try to focus more on, and the money just seems to follow after that.
Yes, love that. Well, something that I say a lot of times, when I'm talking about um, this sort of topic, especially, I like that you bring up being 21. You just like stay alive, but also um, there's sort of like a metaphysical aspect to that where it's like you can be a 21-year-old, but you're still like 13,
Right.
or you can be a 40-year-old and you're still 21.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like your personality, your character, your person has not developed beyond a certain stage for whatever reason. And I think everyone sort of gets that. Like you can see people and like interact with people and you're like, oh, he's kind of like there's something off. Like he's, insecure about this, or, doesn't think, thinks that everyone's out to get him, or whatever it might be. And like everybody's got their demons, obviously. Um, mental health is a serious thing, and I take it very seriously, but it's I take the aspect that like I can control everything. It's my head, it's my person. Like I'm in control. So I'm gonna figure it out. And so, I think self-awareness is a big part of that, which I think we talked about before. Self-awareness is a huge part about being successful. But it's also a huge part of developing yourself.
Right.
Because if you don't have high self-awareness, then you're not aware when you don't know when you're fucking up. You don't know when you're being annoying. You don't know when you're being rude or whatever. Or if you don't know what's going on in your head. Like, are your insecurities taking you over? Are you motivated by fear? You know what I mean? Like or are you motivated by some lofty unattainable goal that you have no plans of getting to? Like, I know I've talked to many people in my life who have said things like, oh, I'm going to be famous one day. And my question has always been, oh, like, bet, how you going to do that? I don't know. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, you ain't never going to be famous. Like, there's no, what are you talking about? I mean, like, just, I'm going to do it. Like, how? And that's what I like, that you also tied in the value idea. It's like, it's not, if you strictly chase money, chase a check, it's not coming.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to recognize what money represents. Like you said, it represents value. So what value are you bringing to yourself, to the people around you, people you interact with, your job, your business, whatever it might be?
Right.
The greater your value is in those places, the greater your check will be.
Yeah. I love that you talked about it too, because I can prove that money is value, because there's actually only 4 forms of value, right? And I can tell if someone tells me what it is they do, I can pretty much tell what they get paid without even knowing them, right?
Yeah.
Because of what form of, now this has nothing to do with them as an individual. It's about the work that they're doing, what form of value, right? So the lowest form of value, and these are the people that get paid the least, is implementation, right? where you use your muscles to add value, right? So taking a hotel business chain, for instance, right? Probably the most important people, if we want to be honest, in a hotel business are the maid, cleaning crew, whatever you want to call them, right?
Sure.
That make sure the rooms are presentable and the hotel is presentable.
Yeah.
They get paid the least, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the value that they add, though, is tremendous value. The form that it's produced in is through their physical labor, the use of their muscles.
Yes.
Right. The next form up is unification, right? Or being able to use management skills. So the next highest person, or you could go the second lowest person that gets paid, is the person who manages the people who clean the room.
Yeah.
Right. Now, they're not using their muscles, but their ability, their knowledge, their gifts, their talents to be able to manage and rally a group of people to implement those tasks, because you have to get people to want to implement those things, right? And be able to have them do it effectively and create a culture where they want to keep growing up or showing up for that. That is another form of value that gets them paid a little bit more, right? And they may, a good one, you may be touching 80 to 100K.
Sure.
The next form is communication, right? When you can use your mouth to make money, that's like the third, like almost like the top tier, like, and that's why you see like speakers and thought leaders and things like that start to make money. That's why a lot of people who create platforms and podcasts and things like that, when they start using their mouth to add value, like funds follow, right? Money follows when you can hone that in.
Yeah.
And then the last one is imagination, right? When you can use your mind and your money to make more money, that's when you get paid the most, right? And that goes to some of the people we've talked about here before, the Steve Jobs and the Bezos. And I'll go like this, right? I'll say a company and you just tell me who comes to mind, right? Apple.
Steve Jobs.
Exactly, right? Everyone says Steve Jobs. Now, the interesting about that is, first of all, homie's been dead
for a while,
for like 11 years, right?
Yeah.
But we still, his name is synonymous with it. Now, here's the other crazy thing about it. Steve Jobs didn't create the Apple computer. Steve Wozniak did.
Yeah.
But no one, like most people don't even like, his name doesn't register.
Yeah. I've heard of it, but like, I don't.
Right, because he's a partner. He was a partner in Apple. But the reason is because Steve Jobs was the one who was able to use his imagination, his mind, to say, this is what I think is missing in the world. This is what I want to see. And then he hired someone that could communicate that to get the management of the education. And then there's the actual implementation of people use their muscles. And we don't know any of the other people in between. And that's why he gets paid the highest, because that's that level of value added to society had made him not only extremely wealthy, but also, it has him be remembered.
Yeah. Same thing with like, you say Microsoft.
Yep.
Bill Gates. I mean, it's like I don't know what involvement he had in all of it, but he's pivoted to just like straight up philanthropist. I mean, like, I don't know that even most people are in our day, like probably in our generation or younger, a lot of them probably don't even know that he like started Microsoft. They probably think he's just some like rich guy that
right
and tries to like cure things.
Yeah,
like, I think he actually cured malaria in Africa.
Yeah, they did. And polio is what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's ironic because like I wonder if I've seen a couple interviews from him, and I don't think he's ever directly said this, but it doesn't surprise me that he's pivoted away, and he's been pivoted away from Microsoft for a while.
Yeah.
But because when you operate on that level of frequency for value, I'm sure he probably looked at Microsoft and said, "This is fucking boring."
Yeah. Right?
Like because his only form
Outgrew
of
it.
value, right, is the imagination. Cool, it came to fruition. Like, I'm done, right? And so, some people will, you got conspiracy theorists and things, and maybe even bang him a little bit for some of his imagination of what he thinks is possible in the world, like curing some of these diseases. But that's
Yeah.
his high, that's where he operates, right? And that's his high, that's the only value he can give to the world, because that's the level he operates on. And that's also why he gets paid the big
Yeah.
buck.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't know if I've said this before, but generally speaking, I think it's just wrong to assume people are like corrupt.
Right.
I'm going to assume that he's got, you know, better interests for everyone before I start, criticizing. And, I mean, like, it's hard to, I think this sort of ties into another thought that I've had this week, is how, I was listening to Beyond Good and Evil by Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me, he said something about how Plato, the Greek philosopher, not the stuff that I played with when I was a kid, um, he like invented the idea of good as such. And so essentially what that means is like something can be only good and not bad. And that's really something I've sort of been like wrestling with, because it's really like ingrained in our culture. But I noticed that me and you in our conversations, um, I think we're on the same wavelength of like things aren't only good or only bad.
Right.
Like, when we talk about, like Amazon and Jeff Bezos, like his wealth or the way that he's running his company or like whatever it might be, it's not only good or only bad. Like there are good things and there are bad things. And so that in this book, he was sort of talking about how, he was talking about the relationship between how things work in reality, and how good always has some bad. And it's sort of it's confusing to it confuses the mind to think that things can be only good. And so and that also ties into religion a little bit. Like, the idea has sort of come around that, and it's probably because of like original sin and that sort of thing, that like there is such a thing as being only good or perfect or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and there's this idea too of like living in sin and being born into sin, or whatever it might be. And so he sort of in this book was kind of pushing back on that, and it kind of like really has been on my mind, and how it made me think a lot about how our conversations have gone, and how a lot of the things that we talk about, it's a it's not a black and white thing. A lot of this stuff is gray, and I think life in general is a lot of gray. And you're kidding yourself if you pretend that you can make things only good. I mean, like, even you think of like the invention of cars back in like the 1900s, like back then, and even to this day, like that seems like the greatest thing that's been ever, I mean, like, what's more individualistic and like, represents liberty than having your own car and being able to go wherever the hell you want, whenever you want. Like, at the same time, though, the invention of the automobile has contaminated the earth, like, more than we've ever seen happen in the history of the world.
Right.
So it's like you have to be careful with the way that you think about things, I guess is sort of my point. Is it's, yes, some things are good, but there's also some bad that comes with it. And same thing I think works with money. It's like, if your mindset is, I want money, or I want fame, or I want, you know what I mean? Like if you just want something that's sort of frivolous and you don't understand it fully, then you put yourself in a position where you're going to corrupt your soul, and you're going to get, you know, make, you're not going to be all that you could be.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. Like I said, I we've talked about this before. Yeah, I don't believe I try to not believe that any things are good or bad, and it's really because if you go and look, I do this a lot, right? I go and look at the definition of words, right?
Mm, yes,
And
me
the
too.
definition of good. Here's why something can't just be all good or all bad, right? If you look in the definition of good, as we're speaking of it in a noun, the
Hmm.
definition is either that which is morally right or righteous, which right there you can say right there where hey that it can't be all good because the definition is what's morally right. Well, everyone doesn't share the same morals,
Yeah.
right? So what may be good to you may not be good to someone else. The second definition is the benefit or advantage to someone or something. Well, there's plenty of things around the world that are beneficial to some people and give them an advantage, and on the same token, don't give advantage and maybe even put some people at a disadvantage. So
Yes.
again,
Yeah.
for some people
Exactly.
it's good and some people it's bad. And like the example you brought up of the car, um, I think the issue where we drop off is right. I wouldn't say when I look at it now, I say, yeah. If someone were to say, hey, well, what about all the pollution? I'd say, well, that's not good or bad. I would also say that's not the car's fault.
Yes.
If the car is serving its purpose, I would say, where do we as a society not care or not make a decision enough whenever we found out about the pollution, which we knew about from the beginning, right? When you're creating these things, you know, hey, that's probably not the best,
Yeah.
that this stuff comes out, but the benefits outweighed at that time, the consequences.
Yeah.
Which remember we talked about consequences aren't good or bad. It's just the result. The result of this
Yep.
engine running and burning this fuel is this, and it's not the best to breathe in. It just
Yep.
is. Um, but so where do we as a society and as scientists and things like that say, well, like honestly, if there would have been an on-purpose effort when the car was built to eliminate, as we're starting to see now, right?
Yeah.
There is a big push over the last few years, an effort to eliminate and reduce that or replace that all the way back in the 1900s. Man, who knows what what we would have now? But there wasn't that commitment, right? It was just kind of this like, right, and this push of
Yeah.
responsibility or care. Um, and so that became that the building of that became not a consequence that we are willing to push off anymore, which now a lot of people will attach to feeling like, well, this is bad,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Because it's like you said, the amount of pollution we're dealing with now is putting us on the brink of some issues for future generations upcoming.
Yeah.
That could have some serious health and
Yeah.
basically it now can inhibit our ability to inhabit this planet, and so now we
Yeah.
won't care about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's like there. I look at a lot of. I follow this organization on Twitter. It's called humanprogress.org, I think. Um, and they their objective is to sort of you know balance out all of the negative news that's done on things. And a lot of times you hear that like we're going to hell in the handbasket as far as the earth is concerned, and like the planet's going to die and we're blowing it up, and it's we're not going to be able to everything's just going to be a scorched desert in the next 20 years and 50 years or whatever. um, but this this group had probably it's been a while, but they posted an article that was about the level of change, like the health of the earth has been shifted. Like it was for 50, 60 years, it was like trending way down. And as countries got more and more to the point where, you know, they, you know, were more like America, where, you know, it started to become more of a first world type, you know, economy, and like you could work a job and make enough to have some free time. And, you know, as countries started to build and, you know, become more sustainable, they're, they did a study and essentially showed how their sort of the money and the actions of the government and people in general shifted away from like, oh, I just care about staying alive. So as once you get out of, once you no longer have to, you know, like walk, you know, 3 miles to a coal mine and then walk 3 miles back and get paid, you know, $1 a day. Once we're breaking out of that and you're able to, you know, work 5 days a week and have weekends off and make enough money to save some and, you know, take care of your future endeavors and things like that. People in general, their attention shifts off of I need to stay alive to I can care about other things, like what's the health of this earth that we have. And so like so that only has happened in the last maybe 20, 30, 40 years maybe. And so this article was really interesting how it touched on how human, I guess you could say human nature, but just people's attention in general shifts once they have the freedom to now like not be concerned about their daily life, whether or not, you know, they're going to have enough money for themselves to eat, for the family to eat, for whoever, you know, like whoever else is with them. Things start to change and attention shifts to how can we take care of the earth better? How can we, you know, keep the animals alive? How can we keep the ozone layer intact? How can we, you know, sustain all this stuff? And so the article essentially said was like, we've really in actuality have done way, so like things were trending down for a while and now things have like shot way back up, and it's like the health of the earth is way better than it was 100 years ago. It's just the news only reports the negative stuff, so it's like, so you think that it, you know, it's a disaster, but the reality is like there's so many more people, like not just in America but across the world, that are focused and intentional about, you know, putting their efforts into doing these sort of things. And I, you know, it's just like what I found interesting about the study was how they demonstrated and proved that once you just help people like get to the point where they don't have to worry about staying alive, then their, you know, attention can shift to these other things, and it's changed the world. I mean,
Right. Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of the study that I mentioned before about what happens when people are under financial duress and how their IQ literally drops.
yes,
You know,
yes, exactly.
And you can see it, like you said, over history, right? Where it makes sense why just even in the last 25, definitely there's been times before that, but especially in the last 25 years, where there's been so much technological advancement in every area across the world. And it's because,
Yeah,
like you said, more
that's
and more
another
of the
thing
basic
that,
needs are
yeah,
being met.
technology is huge. I mean, like
Right. So I
just the
have
fact that you can, so everyone can have one of these, like damn near everyone got a smartphone.
right. It's because
That's
we have that luxury now, right? You can, like, it's something that our ancestors, and I'm not just talking about, you know, even 100, like, from, you know, like the humans ancestors, like, didn't have, like, when you're out, like, if I just dropped you off in the jungle, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
you're not thinking about like phone, you're not going to be wondering like podcast episodes, you know, it's like,
Nah, you're wondering about that 40-foot snake looking thing
right.
running through the water or whatever.
Right. It's like, okay, well, how am I gonna eat? Like, where am I gonna find some, like, and when you like, so it's something that, like I said, more and more we've had the benefit of the basic, like before you were born, and like God, right? I mean, that wasn't even in childbirth, right? The
Yep.
mortality rate of our like has, I mean, gone, I mean, like
Yeah.
you
So
could have 10 kids and like 8 of them die back in the day,
yeah, I was gonna
right?
say, this humanprogress.org, they did another a study on mortality rates, and something, I think it was the mortality rate as of 2010 in Africa is double the mortality rate of Europe in like 1980 or 70 or something like that. So it's like it's I'm sorry, not double. It's half.
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
So so you're twice as likely to like have your baby and it have good health care, and like the
Right.
hospital take care of it, and like it stays alive, and that's all just because of technology and information, and it's changed the world. Like more
Right.
people are able to be alive.
Yeah, man. I think it's like uh yeah, I think and I can even say for myself, I think we overlook the ability, and I take advantage. I think I probably take advantage every day. The ability I have, the luxury I have to sit and just think about like
Yeah.
my, like that. It's a luxury that, like I said, that pushes us towards having these things. But like I can imagine if, like I said, you have a kid and like we just know that, oh yeah, most of those things die. So, and there's nothing we can do
Yeah.
about it. And so like you can't even get like attached to, like how are you supposed to be thinking about building, wealth in the future and
Yeah.
expansion of, the people around you when that's on your mind. So that's a very cool study. I like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, I saw you respond to a tweet that I had replied to, somebody I knew that I played college football with. He said he was like basically said that the marriage contract's the worst contract you can
Oh
sign
yeah.
as a man. And I just said prenup, but he liked it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that.
Yeah. So I've been married once, and it was I was young and immature, and thought that I could I was naive and thought that the unhealthy relationship that I had could somehow still work out if I worked hard enough,
Mhm.
which is sort of my nature. Like I just grind. And so I was wrong and foolish, and I fucked up and put myself and my financials through a hell of a lot of trouble. But I made it out and got through it, and so I maybe I'm a bit sensitive to that situation, and I think that it's here. Okay, so with that said, let's get into my actual opinion on marriage. So I think that introducing the government into something that is not really it's more of a spiritual religious sort of connection, and it's sort of an agreed upon thing between two people. I don't see the need for the government to be involved. Like, oh, it's cute they give you a tax break, but like I got plenty of those. You know what I mean? Like I'm cool with tax breaks.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that the institution of marriage is great and beautiful and needs to be there for a lot of reasons, and we can get into that. But um, I think that the government's involvement is requires some additional, um, some legal uh, restrictions, because I mean, just to go like a little bit of insight into my situation, like my ex-wife was like trying to rob me, basically, like trying to have me pay for her student loans and trying to have me pay for a car that we bought together. And um, I was just like, no, no. And I mean, the reality, thankfully, like her parents were very rational and like didn't take sides, and that helped a lot. They sort of like were able to smooth things over and keep her from fucking me over. But I also stood my ground and was like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going into debt to take care of your ass.
Right.
It's already been taken care of. Like, so I think that once the government gets involved, things get ugly. And so I would never, I don't see myself getting legally married again without a prenup.
Yeah. This topic is very interesting to me because it's
Well, hold on. Do you have a prenup?
I do not have a prenup.
Okay.
And it's something we discussed about before with my wife, and I used to tell her I was going to make her sign one, and I didn't. And I always tell her, I think it doesn't matter if you leave me, I'm a show the courts I have no money, so you're not going to get it. And I explained it to her. I explained to her exactly how I'm going to walk through all the transfer of my assets, and I'm going to hey, look, I make $20K a year. I'm in poverty. I can't.
I can't.
I know a dude, millionaire in the real estate space, who went out to dinner with him, and he's been through an ugly one, and how he got out of it. And he did something very similar, just transferred and drained his assets. And
nice.
I don't have anything. But anyway, I mean, more joking, but I am serious. And I told her this. This is what I told her. I said, for me, this is the type of person I am. God forbid something would happen to our union. I was like, I would not leave you high and dry. Now, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to take care of you, but like for me, I'm the type of person where I can understand and see the value that someone has added to me at any point in my life. And I have a natural inclination to pay back and take care of that person for what I think they, what value. And again, my wife's added tremendous value. She's been around when, I had nothing. She actually, paid for several things. I mean, she bought me a car, when we first together, because my hoopty broke down, like so many different things. But
yeah.
So I showed, and now we have a kid, right? And I was like, and there's no question, I'll always take care of my seed, but I was like, I wouldn't let that be dictated by, and that would be my purpose. And like say, hey, if that were to happen, we could split, and you can know that, hey, you're going to be taken care of a little bit so you can transition, and my children are for sure going to be taken care of forever, right? That's not because of why we do what we do, right? But like I said, if you try to legally come after me, and we can't just I will clobber you, and you will not do anything.
I will clobber you.
like it just, that's what it'll end up being. But this topic's interesting to me because of what we were just talking about earlier about the good and bad, right? Marriage more and more now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because we talked about, and I hear a lot of people say that, well, it'd be all good if the government didn't get involved. And the crazy thing about it is that for years, the reason they call it a marriage contract is because these literally were contracts, right? For years, like in our society, and you can go back and look at certain kings. Like let's say King Solomon had 700 wives. Yeah. Now, you look at that and you say that's asinine, and I don't truly believe, just because like what an undertaking. Dude,
what?
Right?
Homie is
like
wow.
I don't think he even like cared or could spend time with. I mean, not even half of the women. Like maybe there's a handful of women he actually really cared about. But he's also known as the wealthiest, still to this day, when they compile like all the gold and things, he had the wealthiest individual on this planet. And if you don't understand, there's a correlation between those, because how it used to be back in the day, and we've talked about this before with feminism, males held everything. If you were a female in the society, you didn't own wealth, property, anything,
Yeah.
right? And so, especially, and that's why it was such a blessing um, to have a son back then as a boy, because if you transferred wealth and you only had a daughter, when you died, it was over for you.
Yeah.
Like that, it was going to be lost
Yeah.
unless you went and married off your daughter. And
Yep.
so what would happen was, especially because let's just say I only have daughters. Well, I know that she's not going to be able to retain my wealth. I need to get my family taken care of, just like me and you are talking about right now. The
Yeah.
only way for me to go do that is to go find somebody who is wealthy and say, hey, look, I'll give you my daughter and you give me, X, Y, and Z in exchange, but in exchange, you're supposed to
You also get the inheritance of.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And she was supposed to be taken care of. And so there's a correlation of 700 wives and the most wealth ever on the planet is that's what it was, this contract. Right. Well, that makes sense. And it was just kind of this agreement. But as society progressed and women start getting more rights all of a sudden, and they are allowed to do these things, you could see how the foundation of these agreements would be a disadvantage to women, because now when I willingly, without maybe a father or whatever, without the same mindset of like, hey, I can't create or do anything on my own, and so I need you to literally take care of me.
There's no exchange.
Right, in society, and now we break it up. Well, so that women didn't get screwed, there has to be this enforcement of like, okay, hey, look, you guys are going to go your separate ways, but give her a little bit of something, because and that was just taking care of the lowest in your society, right? Like without, she literally will not survive in our society without some peace.
Yeah.
And I'm it's interesting to me that it hasn't changed the more and more that women have. I mean, women do amazing things now, and there's still a gap in pay and all those things. But there is that, to me, that's still being held, because like you said, even with a prenup sometimes, but without a prenup, you're just like, you can be really screwed. And it's not so fair anymore, because the woman has the ability to go do anything she wants in this world today. And so when I look at it, I'm like, man, I can see how it started off well intentioned, but I don't want to say, hey, it's necessarily bad. I think, again, there hasn't been the commitment and effort to revisit this thing that we held for so many years and say, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore for someone just because we were married. And that's basically what the contract is. Like, if you join in union and, that's that person is basically has the ability to go after and ask for half of everything, right? And you be responsible for half of everything that they got as well. And it's like, wow. So no, I don't have one. And I think it's really interesting. Like I said, just that when I was thinking about that, I'm like, man, I could see how it started off, but now it's not that way. But nothing has changed. And I think it skews and has made people jaded towards marriage simply because of that, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on first you mentioned the gap in pay. And I think that's another one of those things that's, it's more complicated than what people make it seem. And so like, I know I like Jordan Peterson a lot, and he's a psychologist slash psychoanalyst slash philosopher type dude, and I'm sure everyone's heard about him. But what he talked about is that as a psychologist, he like is his personality sort of leans more feminine. And so he had a lot of clients that were females. Right. And so in Canada, there's and in the States, he worked with a lot of female lawyers that like were at partner level.
Yep.
And what he said was that, you know, like to be a top tier, and a lot of these women were like, they had every minute was scheduled throughout their day, like to the minute they had schedules planned, you know, and like set aside 4.5 minutes to eat lunch or whatever, like that rigorous. And you know, had everything that, you know, all the tools. They had made it to partner, like making, you know, well over 6 figures, and like, and balling out, working 80 hours a week. And they would come to him, and he said it was like damn near all of them would come to him and say like, why am I doing this? My husband, because generally the way, you know, like if you're a very successful woman, you're not going to be in a relationship with a unsuccessful man.
Correct.
So all of them were, you know, very successful and had even more successful husbands. And so, or whatever, boyfriend, whatever.
Right.
So they would come to him at, you know, 30, 35 and be like, why the hell am I grinding myself to a pulp 80 hours a week just to make 6 figures when I can, it's not changing my life,
Right.
money, and, or even the work, because women also have this amazing ability to bear children. And so they, around that age, that like 30s, there starts to be a transition where it's like, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, if I want to have kids, I got to do it like in the next 5 years, maybe 10 years. And so it's, you know, and now we have like, we can like freeze eggs and stuff. I don't know how all that works, but generally speaking, like for the majority of people as of right now, like right around that age, you start to think it's like, well, if I want kids, I got to do it now. And the main, like, that's not a thought for dudes whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, like you can be 60 and knock a bitch up.
Right.
So that there's sort of like an added aspect to you know, an added like another thing to think about for women, because there's sort of a timeline on their ability to reproduce, and so a much shorter timeline than it is with men. And so what essentially Jordan Peterson talked about is how that a lot of them would just step down, and so they would give up the pay that they had, which was, you know, probably a lot more than a lot of dudes, and just start a family, or just like calm down, like maybe work part-time, because I don't know, there's some, it's a really like as powerful as and beautiful as like grinding and building wealth and being a successful business person, like it's equally powerful and beautiful to be the person that can create life.
Right.
And so there, like, that is the expiration on the creating life is much shorter, and so it's like you have a much more difficult decision much earlier that you have to really consider. And you know, some women like don't want to have kids, and like, respect, like that's cool. But for a lot of women, like they want to have kids, and that's a real thought. And so that essentially is my long way of saying that there's like, that contributes to the pay gap, because dudes don't, generally speaking, don't, you know, they don't reach some pinnacle of their career and then stop. Like Bezos didn't, you know, sell a bunch of books and create the book website and then stop. He's now like got it all, like the online shop of online shops. And so even all the way down, like that's just, it's a different sort of mindset for a more like masculine sort of personality. And so I think there's a lot of things that contribute to the pay gap, and so that's part of it. But then I also tying back into marriage. I think I think that it's I think that because of the lack of knowledge and information about how the history of marriage worked, but then also how it works today, it's almost become like cliched in our culture where it's like, oh, you have been with this in a relationship for X amount of time, when are you getting married?
Yes.
And so people don't, when things become cliched, you don't think them through.
Correct.
Because it's just like assumed. And so that's problematic and I think I fell into that to some degree, where I didn't appreciate the magnitude of the thing, the enterprise that I endeavored.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe I should take that back. I appreciated it. I don't know that my spouse appreciated it. And so I took it very seriously, and I don't know that was reciprocated. And so it got to the point where it was. And so on top of that, it was an unhealthy relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to get into all the specifics, but the point is that it's very important to educate yourself, to understand the different aspects and what the purpose of this thing is. So like, even though marriage has become cliched, and like it's because of that, it's difficult to understand exactly where it came from, what its intention is, what it should look like today. The best thing you can do for yourself is to like back up, pivot, and like adjust your perspective and try to learn more about how marriage should work and what it looks like, and what the purpose of it is, and come and approach it from more of a neutral perspective.
So we're done?
No, I lost him. Oh, okay. He just texted me. He lost power. Bowie lost power in that giant ass house. He don't got a backup generator apparently. We'll have to work on that. Might send him a check. Once he gets powered back up, he should be back in. Yeah, so marriage is an interesting conversation to have. I think that there he is.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Oh,
I was telling the viewers that got this giant ass house out in out in the hills, and don't got a generator to kick on.
no, dude, I had this heater plugged in, and then it was only on this floor because like downstairs power's still on, and that power was
Oh,
on.
really?
Yeah, but like I got the heater going, but then my wife came down and like turned on the microwave, and then all of a sudden just like click.
Oh my God.
Oh, but anyway, you were talking about
Yeah, where did you lose me?
you were talking about like you just said like you didn't know she was taking it as serious,
Oh, yes.
and how it's become cliche.
Sure. And so essentially, like my personal experience aside, the point is that I think that anytime you have something that's become cliched, it's like the response shouldn't be, I'm going to dispose of it because like it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
The response should be, let me understand why it's become cliche, because nothing becomes cliched unless it's insane or like ingrained in our culture and society for so long that it's now become sort of like we don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not our culture's fault, that's your fault. Like you need to understand why things have become what they are.
Yep.
And so for I think pretty much everything that is a cliche, it needs to be analyzed and understood, and you need to step back, look at history, educate yourself on what the purpose of it is, and then as you move forward you can understand, okay, like I no longer I recognize that this phenomena is cliched, but I now understand how it got to that point.
Right.
And you become, like you're if you do that with everything, like you're unstoppable. You can't, like, it's hard to go wrong. Because, and here's my response to just quickly to people that would say like if something's become cliche then it's irrelevant or bullshit or it doesn't matter. It wouldn't be in our society still if it was like obsolete or didn't mean anything or had no purpose. Like it wouldn't still be around if it didn't meet one or two or all three of those things.
Right.
So before you even want to dispose with it, like understand that things don't just stick around in cultures unless they have some like tangible purpose and meaning.
Yeah, I think it's interesting on that topic of like how it became cliche, because me and my wife talk about this a lot. I think that's what happens with most people. I think that's why the divorce rate is so high, because people don't understand the magnitude of what they're taking on, but also because, like you said, most people just say, this motherfucker's still around and we graduated college. I
guess it's time
get married. Yeah, like, yeah. And I think that you said, and I'm a huge, you know this about me. I 100% believe that everything does come down to you, so it is your fault. I do think there's amazing amounts of pressure from society, more specific, someone's bubble around them, family and things like that. And yeah. I think I tie it to health, people's health, and the lack of satisfaction with the decisions they've made in their life, right? The quality of life that they've created for themselves. And so they want someone else to fill that void. And real quick, like I'll go into it because I think we are not a very healthy people right now, right? I think we're probably, outside of medicine, right? Like vaccine, like things like that, just our overall health, we're probably the most unhealthy we've ever been on this planet. Yeah. And now we have a longer lifespan because of surgeries and medicines, the ability to save lives, but a lot of people aren't healthy. And so I think that alone puts a lot of pressure on people to, hey, I want to get, like, I want my parents to be able to see me have children and be grandparents. while they're still alive, but also can actually participate and function, right? Like, like if my mom and them are like 60, I should probably try because, they may hit 70 and dementia, like whatever it is.
Sure.
And so I think there's some of those. And I think the family puts those pressures sometimes. Whereas like if you made healthier decisions, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But
Well, I think I think the way the way that health has sort of played out in our society is very similar to the way that like the pollution and caring about the health of the earth has played out. It's like we invented cars and like didn't care about the effect it had on the consequences that it had on the environment because we just wanted to not walk 3 miles to work every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we wanted to, if you can drive, then like, boom, we're good.
Right.
That instantly creates more time for you and creates more value for everyone. And so those consequences were sort of like on the back burner until it got to a point where enough of people in the world, but the world is made up of like a bunch of countries and then a bunch of individuals. And so like, and once enough people got to the point where they started to care about the environment, then we started to make changes and implement things. Same thing with diet. Like when, I don't know, 50 years ago, like most people ate bread and pasta and like that was the frickin' what's the I forget what they call it. It's at my school. The dinner, like what your plate should look like thing.
Oh yeah, my dinner plate, like portion chart thing. Yeah.
That was created by the Department of Agriculture. Which, like, I'm not saying that they were corrupt. I'm just saying their interests ally with you, like buying in and drinking milk with every meal and having pasta and having like 2/3 of your or like a third of your plate being some form of starch or like a carb, and it's like maybe not the best, you know what I mean? And so like again, everybody with diet stuff, I'm not a person that's like one size fits all. Everyone has their own individual needs and stuff, but in the same vein, it's like you could just like, it was easy and free to make bread, have pasta, like it came, it was like 50 cents for a thing and you could feed your whole family and like that was great. And so like no one cared about how like healthy the food was you ate. What we cared about was like, can we eat food?
Right.
And so now we're starting to, in the same way that the environment, we now start to care about the environment, we now are starting to care more and more about what we put into our body. Now, America is a very interesting place because so many people, I believe, know what is going to like know that the food that they're eating is terrible and makes them feel terrible, yet they still do it.
Right.
That's a problem.
Just to put it simply, huh?
Yeah. Well, I just like, I don't know. It's hard for me to, I mean, like, I don't know any like of my friends and the people and in my immediate family and of my friends, I don't know anyone in that immediate family that isn't obese. Like someone, teetering on obese. It might be like, whatever, severely overweight or whatever, but like it's close. And like when I was growing up, my family was always like sort of encouraged that, like to, if you looked bigger, then like that was good. But I didn't always like look healthier. And my family, like we ate pasta 6 days a week. And like if we had meat, it was like a treat. Like it was, I guess what I mean by that is like chicken or beef. Like otherwise we were having like ground beef, meatballs, I mean, like
Right.
that sort of stuff. And so I was always fat. Like I wondered why I had no, like I was, 15, 16 in my teens and like I wasn't fat, but like I'm a slim dude, but like I would work out and like bust my ass in the gym, and I still had like barely any definition on any of my muscles, and like my core was just like looked like, well, and so it's just, I always wondered like what the hell is going on. And then, as I started to really get into and be interested in how I can eat healthier and feel healthier, I started to change up my diet. Now I'm pretty much only carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
And like I build muscle more than I ever have. Like I look better than I ever have. I can see my abs. Like it's a night and day thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard, I guess. Like I love to cook, so I cook steak pretty much, but I mean, like I don't get to cook, a nice, Alfredo. I don't get to do all that, but I feel better. I've never been healthier.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had the unique perspective of obviously owning a fitness business and training a lot of women.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, like you said, a lot of people focus and argue on like, oh, well, you shouldn't eat meat or you shouldn't eat plants or, like the carbs or this,
vegan or whatever.
Yeah. And it's ironic that if you like, I have several clients who you were talking about bread and pasta, who would go travel abroad and like to like Germany, like places like that, and where that's all they eat is pasta and bread, and lost weight while they were there.
Yeah.
Because it's not even so much, and this is where I think we have to become more aware and accountable. It's not even so much the food that we do eat, right?
Lifestyle.
Because think about how we survived for so long. Like when you were going and killing something because y'all needed to eat, bro, like that stuff wasn't really being cleansed or really cooked. Like they would store meat in little holes and rocks and just like douse it in salt to preserve it and then like bring it out and eat it. Like, like this is like bad, right? But they were still be able to, because what's more deadly is how it's processed and created. Like why, like how could someone go and live somewhere for a month and eat pasta and bread and lose weight and not necessarily increase their activity level? It's because of how it was being produced over there versus how it's produced and distributed over here. Sure. That makes it not as nutritious or harder to break down for our bodies, so on and so forth. And that's the really big difference is like in America, we have really low standards for what is allowed to pass on how things are processed and presented to us.
Yeah. I like that because my first thought was lifestyle, but that actually makes more sense because just the little bit that I know about how the body responds to the like hyper processed food that we have is it. So fat is an organ, right? Like, like your heart. And so it has sort of tendencies or characteristics, things that it does. And so one of the number one things it does is sort of like target and help calm inflammation. And so when you eat hyper processed foods, it actually inflames your stomach and your intestines. And so the reason that you can see like, skinny, regular looking ass dudes who are now 40 and like don't care about what they eat and have just like, a big old gut, it's like they're probably eating things that inflame their stomach, and then fat goes and targets that
Right.
to then sort of, insulate and calm the inflammation. And if you, do that for 3 years, like, boom, there you go. You got a beer gut.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too, because there's a couple things that that have contributed. Yes, that's so true about the inflammation. The other thing about it is like, and again, just to anyone that's like, hey, I don't believe you. Like you talked about, I mean, even just 75, like in this country, people like, I mean, people would eat bread and cheese all the
All the
time,
time, yeah.
but we're never this fat. So it's not the food; it was that to feed the city of Westerville, like we're going to Owen's backyard, like we're like it's like Buddy just made it, like there's no preservative, like it's fresh. But it's funny because like the human body is the most like organism on the planet, right? It's why we've been able to survive. And there's also because food has become commercialized. Yeah. Right. Think about that. Like only till very recently in our history was food commercialized. Before, like you said, it was just a survival thing. And when you had to go hunt and gather your food, you wasn't eating as frequent. Like I don't know if people realize, like you weren't going on like, oh, breakfast time, let me go
3
hunt.
meals a day is
like that's
thing.
not how it was happening. Like
that is brand new.
Yeah, like that's been pushed and marketed to us so that we, an industry can thrive. But yeah, like before it was just kind of like, we may go hunt this and like we may not find something to really eat besides some nuts and berries to kind of tide us over for a week or so, like and so I think that's as well. It's like so the lack of quality of the food, and then the frequency that we can consume that as well has become
and that's like in somewhat of a defense of like commercialized food, there's way more people to take care of. So like to some degree, it's like, how are we going to feed 330 million people? Like at some point, like I think it can be done better, but I think that it's not all bad. Like it just, it could be done better, but at some point it's hard as fuck to feed 350 million people.
Yeah, I when I say the commercialization, I don't want to necessarily paint a bad picture on them, because like I said, these things, like you guys, anything I say you guys should know, I just take it with not good or bad. If you go, look this up. This will be like kind of homework, cool to see. You talked about like, hey, having milk with every meal and stuff. Go look up and study the Got Milk campaign, because the way that got pushed to us was simply through a company that ran a marketing campaign with their take on it, and people took that as truth. And now pushed where we have a very heavy reliance on dairy, but it was really from this one advertising campaign for a company that just wanted to sell more of their stuff, right? And I don't think that's good or bad, right? I think that like I said, part of it is the lack of due diligence on it. Like we have really become sheep.
I think, I was gonna say, like, point blank period, it comes down to yourself as an individual on whether or not you educate yourself, whether you care enough about all of these things.
Yep.
So continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly where I was going to say. Like, that's what it really comes down to, like the lack of just being like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And not challenging or reasoning or just going to double check for ourselves has gotten us here. Because like I said, as a business, why wouldn't they market their product? I'm not like, again, it wasn't some sinister plan. That's what everyone tries to attach sinisterness to, like, where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to make this campaign. We're going to get everybody relying on dairy and make them fat.
Everything ain't the fucking Illuminati.
Right. Like now 100% there are people who take advantage of those things, but I don't think people really understand. Now there are very sinister things that happen. You can look at false flag alerts and things that governments and institutions do to maintain control and pass things. 100%. And if you need any proof of that, for anyone that's like that on the other side of like no conspiracy theories, just go look at the files. It happens every few years that our own government declassify. Like, and you'll be like, hold on, we did what?
Yeah.
Like, you guys' plan was to do what? Like, you can go look at programs from that the CIA created with MK Ultra Mind program, like all the where
Wow.
they
Yeah.
were
MK
setting
Ultra
like,
was insane. Holy
yeah,
shit.
like like, hey, we're trying to, do these things but that they would stand for years and say, oh no, come on, you're crazy. And then it's like, oh, declassified. And they're like, oh yeah, our bad. Like,
Yeah.
no, we didn't shoot, homie. We didn't try to kill Martin Luther. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Declassified. Yeah, our bad. Like,
Oops. Well, and that's the thing is like there's a great podcast. I'm trying to remember who it was. Joe Rogan,
uh-huh.
and I can't remember who the freaking person was, but they did the same. They I think wrote a book or something on the MK Ultra
Mm-hmm.
situation and how um, Charlie Manson was involved and the Unabomber.
Mm-hmm.
And like a couple other like random people were all involved in that nonsense. Like it blew my mind away. And just like a quick for those of you who don't know, this is essentially like organized LSD testing, drug testing on American citizens to see if like this might be debatable. This part might be debatable, but it seemed to be to test to see if they could use the drugs to mind to get people to control their mind, essentially.
Yeah. My understanding is that yes, that was definitely the goal, and for two reasons. So here's the problem with this, right? And it's been built off of, right? If you go look it up, they'll tell you that the MK Ultra programming is shut down. And yes, in the form that Owen's talking about, where they're willing and open to say that we were gathering individuals, the least of these, because if you go for it, they were kidnapping like homeless, like taking advantage of those situations and doing these tests on them. Where like that's not technically happening, which who knows, maybe 20 years someone figures out and it's like, oops, yeah, we said it, and it still is. But
some more declassified,
right, some more declassified stuff. But what actually happens is that the foundation of that, so what they were actually trying to do as well was to see if they could program not just people in general, but actual people that I could program Owen without his knowledge, send him somewhere to do a mission, basically a sleeper cell agent, but then I could activate him and he would carry out his mission for sabotage on the enemy and then deactivate him. And they had some success doing it, actually. Which is ridiculous. But what happened is what takes off of that, right? Like, again, it is dangerous. And you guys, everyone knows. Let's just think about this. Let's just say, Owen, you're trying to put together an event or a part. Just think about your own family. You know how hard it is to organize something with your fucking family? Like, good Lord, right?
Yeah.
If you like, it's hard to rally people sometimes. And so it's much easier if you can just get everyone to kind of fall in line. How do you, like you said, there's 350, like that's so many people on this planet. Everyone cannot just be doing what they want. Even as different countries, we have to have all these people kind of doing the same thing. And so that programming led and has created, and there's even more studies on like, okay, cool. You guys think, and television it's such a great tool, but the government 100%, and I know if the government's doing, there's other people outside of that who are, there's whole studies that are declassified about how, hey, we're going to program our nation through the use of radio and television images and sound, like just period, which is why the news is the way it is. Like that is used to control.
Well, and to this day, I see, the other day I saw a commercial back when I was in Columbus, I saw a commercial that was like some nurse who was like, I know what you've heard, but I've seen people die healthy, perfectly healthy people, no underlying problems whatsoever, die from COVID. I watched it happen. And it's like, what the hell what are you trying to get me? And it was a government sponsored ad.
Mhm.
And at the end, she's like, just remember, stay home. Don't, celebrate the holidays from home. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? This isn't like all it was fear mongering. As far as I saw it and was like, oh, you are trying to get me to think you know what the hell's going on when y'all's dumbass knew there was a second wave coming. Y'all sat around for 9 months.
Right.
What preparation was there for us for the second wave? None.
Right.
And so we're just going to keep on doing the same shit we've been doing. What are you? Either you're stupid and ignorant, or you're manipulating.
Right. Exactly. And let me be clear about something, guys, because that statement, and I didn't see the commercial, but as the statement, as you said, is true, right? That's a factual statement.
Yes.
But like you said, there's nothing just gets put, like me having facts, the way I distribute information can be manipulative, even if it is the truth.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
like
you can see that is one of the if you give a fuck about any if you care about sports, I guess what I'm saying is any area that you're in, you can make any argument about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're smart enough to understand numbers and manipulate words and manipulate numbers and stats and all the shit. You can make it seem like Tom Brady's actually a trash quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron's actually not the best player in the league right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what you can make different arguments and twist things and manipulate it. So you can do that with everything, especially with things that the government can control.
Right. So, and like I said, and I don't think, I think I can see, again, if we take it back to our family, I can't say, right? We'd love to think that we were in the room, right? And this goes all the way to the inception of our country, because the inception of our country and our leaders came together and they said, okay, yeah, we got this new nation thing. Hey, look, dude, my neighbor, Bob's a fucking idiot. I don't want Bob to really have an opinion on very much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we can, like, you can do, like, it makes sense in the moment. Like I said, just think about your family where it's like, no, just like, we're going to do it my way. Or like, I need you guys to jump in. So I can see but it's been used and exploited now. And is considered like, and if you need any more proof, dude, the fact that you guys should just try this. And it's pretty easy to do now. You could get like a YouTube TV subscription. And I say YouTube TV because it's basically virtual television.
Shout out YouTube TV. We'll take any ad money.
Love YouTube TV. You can send ad money our way any day.
Yeah.
But YouTube TV allows you, it registers your area code and will switch the local stations to that, right? So you can use a virtual private network and have one in Indiana and one in Miami and one in Columbus and one in Arizona. If you turn on the evening news, they will almost, and this is crazy, 4 different states you can do this. And you see this occasionally on clips of like Twitter where they piece together all these news stories.
Yep.
And it's word for word, verbatim, not only the same exact like information, in the same exact tone.
Yeah.
That is not an accident.
Yeah.
Like that's on purpose curation, delivering of information to a way that we know is going to incite certain feelings.
And here's the reason for that is all of those local networks, whether it's like, I don't know, whatever WTDD, blah, blah,
Yeah.
whatever that's all like, CBS or ABC, or
it's syndicated by basically, I think it's four main individuals, or you can go companies, but there's heads of those individuals. Yes.
Yeah.
Or those companies.
So like, if you want to say like, oh, like it's just a crazy coincidence or that's bullshit or it does, like they're all one, they all come back and are like organized by one entity. There's
Mhm.
like 4 different entities, but like all of those local channels are still like organized by, so that's how they organize and streamline the information.
Yeah, and if you guys want to like go find some local news people, I mean, you probably somebody probably knows some local like, and there's people that reporters that leave over this because they get into it and they realize like we didn't get to like I a lot of them start as journalists, and journalism is like the purest form of like where you can still usually get the truth out of news because there's this search for just the truth, just information.
Yeah.
But then as you elevate, you get to this and you realize like all of a sudden like that gets thrown out. Like I didn't get to like we didn't get like I brought so and so story and they were like, nah, we don't want that trash. Like and like I tried to say this and they canned it, or like
even journalism is starting to get to that point where it's like corrupted to some degree because you're dealing with these large entities that have narratives and have things that ideas that they want to push, and it's like they're not going to they put people in a position that are that they're not going to put out a story that doesn't would put a negative light on things that they care about or things that that the company says that they care about or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no coincidence that there's been an on purpose, not only lack of funding, but if you look into it, I saw a documentary about this, on purpose purchasing of like independent journalism places. I can't remember who it is. One of the biggest, we're speaking of the people that are head of those entities, was actually has been for like the last 25, maybe 30 years, buying up these and then shuts them down.
Really?
Buys them up, shuts them down, buys them up, shuts them down, buys them up, shuts them down. Like there's no, like that's an on purpose effort to like say, hey, I gotta keep what I want to be in control of what is and isn't dealt out.
Real quick point on journalism real quick. Like that used to be, it wasn't necessarily the like reporting on truth, I would say. It was more like, here's all the facts. Here's what's going on. You figure out what you think.
Right. There was no narrative attached with the information.
Now all of it has become, everything's an opinion piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare to find someone that just gives you facts and says, here's what's happening. You think, you figure it out. Yeah. Anytime you find someone like that, those journalists, like, give them your attention.
Yep.
Love on them, because like, I don't need your opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm smart enough to figure out my own opinion. And, this ties back into, like you said, like, so, stop being sheep.
Right.
If you're a sheep, like, you just you read the opinion piece and think that it's straight facts. It's not.
Yeah, yeah, man, I mean, we're saying all this to go back to the original thing, like this on purpose control, like, so like I said, that, like, to me, that can't be debated. Like, if you go and educate yourself, like I said, it's as simple as if you just want to start with our unclassified files. Like, I mean, files where our government literally just says like, oh, okay, well, and here's what, and
this is old, and it's old enough to where it's like, that's, or right. Or it coincides with like Trump said something ridiculous, or like, insulted the Chinese government, like they'll slide it out then. And so they report on that, but like that stuff slides out.
Right. And so like my thing here is like, here's my thing too. If you can just go and see where the government literally just said, oh yeah, oops. And like I said, if you really go look at them, I mean, because that's what it is, right? There's like, it's so crazy how they do it. They're just like, because they do massive dumps of it. And like, so the public's really not good. It's the investigative journalists who usually go through and like write stories, but it's just like, oh yeah, Because I can't remember. There's a time period where some of it are scheduled, and then usually there's some things that get brought up within Congress or the Senate, and they say, yeah, go ahead, right? They kind of vote on if they're going to release it to the public, and they'll still redact certain pieces of it, or keep it classified. But that's literally, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, you've looked on page 4,822 on line 4 and saw that we did X, Y, and Z. Yes, sorry. like it is like that. But my thing is, like, if they're willing to do that, how much more is there that they're just like in those same meetings are like, yeah, we're not gonna release or redact that. And like, we're not, like, to me, that's like eye-opening. And I know I don't know in what form. I can't imagine it's still in book form anymore, because that would be asinine. But I know there's, like, when you become the president, the quote unquote, like, book of secrets, or basically is what it used to be, like, of all of our nations. Like,
I remember.
I can't imagine it's still a book over all of these years. There's had to be some compilation of, like, digital. I don't know where it's at. Every president apparently moves it and, like, puts it somewhere for the next president. I don't really know about all that, because I'm not president.
You think that's real?
Yeah, I don't think it's I think that, like I said, I think years, like, many way presidents before, like Washington, probably,
like Lincoln probably had a book.
Yeah, like, anymore, like, I can't, even by him, right? I mean, there had to been several, like, of a nation's secrets. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a fat book.
That's what I'm saying. Like, somewhere it's not a book anymore. I don't think that really, like, happens anymore. But yeah, I mean, because how could you govern an entire, and dude, and here's my proof of it, right? This is silly, but here's my proof of it.
Yes, bro, I think I know exactly what you're saying.
Bro, you watch any president, and then look at
the first day versus the last day. Yes.
Like, but then look at when they leave. Like, Obama looked like homie was about to die, then left, and was like,
yes,
life again. And I think it's just
his hair is dark again.
Yeah, even like his face then, like, kind of smoothed out, and, like,
oh my god,
he kind of beefing back up. But it's like, yeah, there's the stress of the job, but I think it's because you're carrying the burden. It's like more the burden of just carrying information and things, and knowing that you can't tell sometimes in certain situations, even your wife. Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, and my also 2 cents on this is because I think some people, and I think Trump is actually the first one who may be a problem with it, to be honest with you. But I think that there is, right, that ability to have access, and because you wouldn't be able, we run a compounding country, right? The way we transfer, like, you would have to have awareness of things that happened even 20, 25 years, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, let's say another leader still in power and knows what happened, and you don't, like, you know what I'm saying? There's no way you could do your job without access to that information. And so it's like, man, that's huge. And I think that the way that they make sure that they shut up about it is the Secret Service.
I agree. I was just going to say that.
There's no real reason. There's never really been a threat. Like, no one's, like, really going out and hunting our presidents after. Like, people get mad and stuff during. There's been the few attempts on presidents' lives, by the way, that have always been tied back to our own government. Yeah. Like, so, like, when there is, like, normal people don't have even the slightest chance of trying to take out a president. But, like, okay, you're gone. Why homie's still following you around? I know they're saying that's for their protection, but I think
that's what I was gonna say. It's like, who cares about? I don't care about any of the presidents, right, that we've had in the past. Like Clinton, bye. Right. Like, you're irrelevant. I guess that's part of the whole point of the system, is, like, once you're the president, like, you're it for 1-2 terms. Yep. And you're out, and no one cares about you anymore. Exactly. Unless you write a memoir or whatever. Exactly. And so I think that's how it's kind of, like, kept up, of, like, making sure that you follow the norms, because, like I said, because they're just not really in, like, okay, you're irrelevant after you, like, I appreciate your service, right, sometimes, but I don't care. Once you're gone, like, I don't care about you. Why do I need you to be kept alive? Enough to the point where I'm going to put like tax dollars into Secret Service who's going to be following your ass around all the time. Like,
Right. Well,
like that's what, who's trying to kill a former president?
Right. And so here's what I try to get people to see is like, so George Washington was president in 1780, like 85, 9 or something like that. The Secret Service wasn't even created until like 1870.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like this, we randomly, now we got to start protecting the presence of it. Like I said, I think there was kind of like, it's kind of like, yeah, we're going to make sure that all that stuff that you had going on and figured out why you was in doesn't get around,
Yeah.
But that's just interesting to me.
Yes, it is. It is very interesting. So that essentially, like, I think what we're getting to, the narrative of the whole conversation is like, don't be a sheep. Think critically about these things. Like, and it even ties into, like, as a person that wants to be successful, you can't have no like spine, right? You can't just sort of like flow with whatever the narrative is on whatever day. If you have no backbone, like, one thing, like if someone says like, oh, you've started this business, like, oh, restaurants are done. And you listen, because someone out there has said like, oh, restaurants are a thing of the past. I know for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll Google it right now. Everything's going to be this now. No one's going to a restaurant anymore. And you own a restaurant, like, and you listen to that and you shut it down. Like, what do you, or you even like believe it in your head.
Yeah.
And start like, trying to change up your strategy to like fit someone else's thought or narrative or opinion on whatever you do. You. Yeah. A true mogul thinks that way. Thinks like, I got it. I can figure it out. It's not that I have it figured out. It's I will be able to figure it out.
Exactly.
And so the same thing with all of this, it's not really conspiracies. I guess it sort of is, but like, this stuff is provable. And it's not that I don't think either of us are like, going to die on a hill. Like, we believe these things. It's just, if you think critically about these things, it's very difficult to not see some level of manipulation or corruption or trying to get people to act like sheep.
Yeah.
Whether it be like we've talked in the past, whether it be the school system, all the way up to like local news and things like that. Like, whatever across the whole spectrum, this stuff it's important to think about and spend time trying to understand where you fit in all of this and what seems to make sense, what doesn't make sense. Like, none of this is unnecessary. Like, I think all of this can help you in your own business, being keenly aware of like the way people try to talk to you. Like, I know for me, like, if I have a like, I'm a realtor, and so if I have a client that's just like wants to go to look at houses and like has no interest in buying, they just like want to look at houses for fun, like, you can tell when people are trying to like just take advantage of your access or the things that you have. And so like, the more that you develop yourself and the more that you build your personality and your build up your self-awareness, you start to sort of tap into like how other people are acting. And so that that puts you in a position where you don't have to be an asshole, but like, you are quicker to recognize when people got messed up priorities.
Yeah. I love that wrap up. One thing I wanted to add extra just to get your take on, since we were talking about it, and this always comes up. So, what is your thoughts on, since we're talking about this stuff, And like we said, some of this stuff, there's conspiracies to some of it, but some of it, like I always lean on the side where it's like I always just lean on the stuff where they're like, oh yeah, oops, sorry, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that's not a conspiracy, that's a
Well,
confession.
like, yes, like Occam's razor is sort of the um, philosophy that I sort of apply to these things. And Occam's razor is essentially like whatever was easiest to happen is probably what happened.
What happened? Right.
So like whatever is the least complicated for any situation is like mathematically like it is a much higher percentage that is what happened than anything else.
Okay, so knowing that, then your take on 9/11.
Straight up conspiracy. Inside job. No, I'm playing. Um I think that one, I have not.
Well, here, let me put it like this, right? Before we go, because like this is all opinion, right? We don't really have facts, but I'll just lay it to you like this, since you just told me your kind of thought process behind it. Which, and you guys can go look this up for yourself. Which is easier for our country to literally go under an international terrorist attack? We have homebred terrorist attacks very frequently, right? And we've only been attacked like I think twice in our history country, and one was like Pearl Harbor. It's like all the way over there, like on a little tiny island. They like blew up like
where
which
the
is
people
more,
like
like which is easier?
It's like a fake. It's like they're
like I wouldn't really call that like a terrorist attack.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's like
only because like
really, we just wanted that place for like military purposes.
Right, and that's my thing. I don't know if you can call it a terrorist attack, right? They attack on like we were attacked. Well, you were at war, and it's a naval base. Like, I mean, if we're playing war and I blow up your war assets, like, I don't know if that's really like an attack. We're at war. Like, so what's easier, that or that someone? I'm not gonna point fingers at who, but it was on our side. Like, which is the more higher probability?
Sure. Well, my opinion is that we were picking a fight with Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, and I actually, ironically enough, did my thesis, my senior thesis for my undergrad. Mm-hmm. I touched on well, probably half of my thesis was on the creation and the development of the Muslim Brotherhood and the sort of extremism that built out of it. I used, if for anyone interested, The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright. Great book, very like insightful about, and it's not an opinion. Like, it's just, here's what happened, and here's the people that influenced it, and but I think that there's tension that was building between, let's say, the States and like our culture and a more traditional culture of Islam in the Middle East. And there was a lot of Americanizing like the world. Is that basically our culture was spreading to the rest of the world like really quickly, and it started to touch in some of the more traditional cultures, and that was really like frustrating and like not good in many people's eyes. And so that sort of indirectly created this hostility. Mm-hmm. And then and then I think that I think our government basically was just like trying to pick a fight with the Middle East over oil, and or just like because it's really sort of like untouched territory, more or less. Like a lot of Europe sort of had its ties in there, but like America didn't really have much. Kind of the same way that like Africa was once like Europeans started having, like going to Africa. There wasn't like Ghana and Liberia and South Africa. Like it was just Africa for the longest, and then Europeans came over and like divided it all up based on whose country it belonged to.
Right.
And so I think there was a similar thing with the Middle East, and like there was an attack. Well, I don't know enough about it, but somewhere in the 90s, supposedly like I don't know I forget if it was Saddam Hussein or whoever supposedly put a bomb and like underneath the garage of the Twin Towers, something like that, a car bomb or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't heard this now.
Oh, really?
In the 90s?
In like the early 90s, there was an attempt to blow up the Twin Towers. Was someone put a bomb in underneath the garage of the thing, and it just like, I don't remember exactly how, obviously it damaged things, but I don't know much about the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm.
But so, over the years, I think we just slowly but surely built up an enemy, just, mostly because we're clueless. And it got to the point where, we started to have too much entanglement in other countries, and too much of a, like democratization is a sort of phenomenon that started like kind of with the Cold War, where, we were sort of wanted to combat Marxism and sort of minimize it. And so the government determined that the way to do that was to spread democracy throughout the world. And so we just got involved in everybody's business. And so I think that effort it was just sort of a perfect storm of all these things coming together, and, we just pissed off.
So you do believe that those tensions and efforts led to an outside attack on our soil?
Yeah.
I
haven't like watched videos or anything.
Like I said, to me, I think it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be long dead. Our children are going to be long dead. Our children's children are probably going to be long dead. I swear to God, because.
So you think it's like a Kennedy thing? The Kennedy assassination?
So here's my thing. I believe that our government sat down, or our president sat down and said, yes, no.
No.
That would be asinine to me. And I don't know if people understand the magnitude. So everyone remembers the Twin Towers. If you do, go look up that day. There were actually 4 different crashes around that happened pretty much simultaneously after each other. I can't get people to understand the planning that would need to happen for 4, not 1, not 2. First of all, 2 planes to go off and go into 2 towers within this. Like, if you guys don't, like, go look up and understand air traffic control, and like, you don't see them. There's like just right now, like planes going back, and they stay, like, everything's mapped out to the inch to stay away from each other.
30,000 feet up.
No fly zones, like all types of things. So for just 2 planes to be flying that low and hit is like, but then for another one to go hit the Pentagon.
Then do you not buy the hijacking thing? Or is that, because that, if they get hijacked, then like.
Okay, cool, right? But here's my thing, right? Okay, if you hijack, you just hijack, right? Terrorists' job is just to cause terror. They could have easily just like first of all, I don't know if people understand a hijacking of a plane. That pilots where they are is a very secure area, and they're actually taught. This is before like something go like they don't come out. Like they like matter of fact, no one can get in. They have to let you in.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm like, all right, of 4 different planes simultaneously, but then that crash, the last one that people always forget about, it said it was like going somewhere towards DC, but it crashed in Pennsylvania, just into a random field.
Yeah, they say that people like
thwarted
the
hijacker. Well, again, if I just take that one's very interesting to me, because if I'm on my way to DC, and that's, first of all, again, a plane can't just go where it wants. Like as soon as you go off the slightest off course, they're like, yo, you're off course, you better respond, or they literally will deploy our military air force, the closest air force base will go and send jets to put you back on course because you're not responding.
Well, I'm about to watch like 15 9/11 conspiracy videos now.
So this is my thing, right?
That's
like,
nuts.
I just look at just stats, the things I know to be true, right? So none of the things I'm telling you right now are conspiracy or like that's just how it works. If you are an unidentified or a plane that goes off course and does not respond to the tower, they will call the nearest military base and they go and deploy fighter jets, and they will radio to either get back on course, they will ground you, or they will blow you out of the sky. So the fact that not one, not two, not 3, but 4 go out off course like that.
And the ones that they showed I remember when I was like, 2nd, 3rd grade,
right,
coming downstairs and seeing my family like staring at the TV, and the one I watched this live. I watched live the second one hit, and also like just the fact that we had that set up and ready to go is like
that is key.
But I remember they showed the trajectory of them, and it was like the 2 were like off in Indiana, and it wasn't like they were in New York and just hit a Huey, and like it was too quick for anyone to like recognize, oh shit, they're going. It was like probably an hour plus of them being off track.
That's what I'm trying to get people to understand, that a hijacking. So then, unless you're an experienced pilot, let's say me and you bully our way into a cockpit. I'm not about to like fly.
I played video games, but that's too many buttons.
Like the pilots are trained, they will crash that plane before they let it, like you said, turn around, go off course, and go. Like that's not just kill me. Like they will ground the plane. Like they call it crash landing. They're taught to like just right. So that's very interesting to me. And those are just like things we know. Also, he said way off course, jets are supposed to be going like, what are you doing? We finna blow you out the air. And so the fact that not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 were off course, off trajectory, and then flew that low. Because again,
for that long.
Yes, every single, and you guys have all been in airplanes, it takes 20 minutes to descend even to a place where I would be able to crash into. Well, first of all, there ain't no landing strip next to the fucking Twin Towers. Ain't no landing strip next to the Pentagon. Yeah. So even if it was just a hijacking in 20 minutes and that was where you were supposed to be, they're in there yelling at you like you're like not supposed to be landing right now. Like, I'm not sure if everyone's ever arrived early to the airport and they just tell you, yeah, we're circling the plane right now because we're not allowed to land. That is just, it doesn't make any sense to me. So like, okay, there's 4, right? All right. Yeah. But then, like you said, to me also that the second one was televised.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anything about the tape delay. We've been using tape delay before 2011.
Yeah.
Right?
2001.
Been introduced. Yeah, 2001. I'm sorry. That was been like there's been delay on media coverage. So the fact that we had one lets me know that the terror was meant to be seen. Right? Like we need everyone to see that this happened. Right? And that you said the second one is now there's been some scrubbing of it since, but like you said, I remember
I watched it live.
seeing the second one be and hit.
And it was like they had tracked it for like a grip before they were like, here it comes. It's like, oh my God, is it doing this? And then they were like, oh my God.
Right. Like that is just so far-fetched to me, right? And then we can go and look at, and I have seen a documentary on this, and it was just kind of, you may like it, I don't remember, it was probably a year ago. I think it was on Netflix, but it was just the facts. It was basically some experts coming and talking about, not their opinions on it, but just controlled demolitions. Just controlled demolition experts. And
you remember what it was called?
I'd have to go look for it.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. You keep talking.
But basically, they had a couple of them had to give their expert opinion that the way that the Twin Towers specifically collapsed upon themselves, in their expert opinion, and all these fell like a controlled demolition. And there's actually reports of some people I remember earlier on that said they heard a boom, like you said, from the bottom of the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
So, but the explanation
I heard that
was that the two towers, if you go look at the picture that crashed into the top of the buildings, well, the gasoline fuel was so hot, it melted the steel beams at the bottom of the fucking building and made it collapse.
Yeah.
Well, again, I have trouble like wrapping my mind about that because you have to go look and see how skyscrapers are built. First of all, look how your house is built. You see your house is not just like they go in just houses 10 feet down.
Yeah.
That's where the foundation of your house for it to collapse and crumble are at.
Yeah.
And when they go do controlled demolitions, they go to the foundation and they place charges at the foundations to make it collapse because just knocking a building down ain't going to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
They also, it's been proven that the heat, heat that steel would collapse under, because I mean, like the steel would literally have to turn into liquid for that to just
which is like thousands of degrees.
Right. Gasoline doesn't come close to the temperature high enough to do that.
Even jet fuel doesn't?
Yeah, jet fuel. That's what I meant. Yeah, jet fuel doesn't hit that temperature to do that.
Okay.
And so I'm just like, I don't know who, right? I just find it very, like you said, to me, the likelihood.
Yeah. So what is the point of, what motivation is there to have a controlled demolition?
This is where, and like I said, so that's what so that's just my thing, right?
That's just facts.
That's why I believe, like you said, and that I've never heard of that, but I would agree, like just the probability and just knowing, like I said, just how airplanes go off, the fact that not one, not two, not three, but four went so off track and ground, like even to our Pentagon, which again, if you wanted to say, hey, we're not going to care about two random office buildings, okay, the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Why were like military scrambled to like there's a crash like coming straight towards a very important government structure and there was no
reaction.
To like blow it out of the sky.
Wow.
It just goes against basic procedures and protocols we have, and that all four happens is the planning it's just not probable. Like I'm not a mathematician. Maybe they can go figure it out, but the percentage, it ain't 25%. I can tell you that.
Well, here's the thing: as you uncover and know more, like I didn't know any of that until you just shared it. But now that I like Occam's razor, that principle seems to lean a little bit more towards an inside job than
Right. Now, again, I'm not saying, and I don't know, I 100% do not think that, obviously, our president at that time was George
Bush.
Bush, senior, junior, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think he just sat and I was like, hey, we finna,
yeah.
Because it just takes so much meticulous, I don't even think, I know one person couldn't do it, and I think it takes years but if you also go look, and these are things that I do know, the changes that happened after that, not even our ability to declare war.
I was just thinking of when I hopped on this flight, I was thinking about all the shit I got to do to get on a plane. Like, I got to strip butt naked and walk through a thing and hold my arms up.
Well, that, right? TSA didn't exist until after.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is I the whole time I'm thinking in my head, wow, what would it be like to fly before 2001?
Right. So here's the interesting thing about that. So it gives, which we need. We always need reason. And if there's a separate, I think it's the Cheney movie or documentary where Cheney was trying to go to war over there in the Middle East. You have to get approval for these things. That wasn't happening. All of a sudden this happens. It's like full-blown support. Yeah, go do what we need to do. And yes, we also robbed that country blind of its oil reserves.
Yes.
Whatever you want to say there, right?
And
so, again, do I think
we went in for nuclear weapons and left with
oil. Yeah, which we never found, by the way. That was the big push. Yeah, they got weapons of mass destruction. Where, these motherfuckers, drink water out of a fucking hole. We never found the shit all these years. They're which, by the way, guys, it's not were they just really good at hiding them? Nuclear weapons have to be created and stored in a very specific, you would know. And then if they're built, they have to be stored in a silo so you can actually launch these shits. It's not just oh yeah, they never found so whatever, right? But then, like I said, all the changes that happen. So a couple key things happen. Yeah, Homeland Security, right? They make these changes, and for instance, like you said, TSA. Well, if this is government statistics, I think it's either the FBI or the CIA. TSA gets tested on their efficiency, and I think it's the FBI that said this. 80% of the time, TSA fails their test, where they literally go and they sneak things in. TSA fails. 80% of the time. And you can go look at the creation of it.
I heard that.
That TSA, when they created it, was not to thwart attacks. That, as a matter of fact, it would be very inefficient in stopping any attack. It's theater for a show of force to discourage people from attack.
So it's it's the same thing with masks,
right?
Optics, because
it's okay. So that's not even there. But then the big thing that was passed was, I can't remember what the name of the act is. But they were able to pass an act through Homeland Security that basically says if they label you a terrorist, not if you're found guilty or evidence, if law enforcement labels you a terrorist, you lose all rights, American rights, and they have the ability to go and that was a huge thing that was passed. And they also were able to pass some things where they would start to mass surveil our nation, right? Which is the NSA got in trouble for. All those things passed right after that.
Yep.
And so I'm just you know what? That seems a little too convenient for me.
It's so quick on the trigger,
right.
This insane thing happens and we're pushing all this in
right
within the year.
Right. Yeah, just boom, 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 boom. Especially when, and if you don't know what this is, go look it up, especially when I understand the tactics of, or the chess move, if you will, of what's known as a false flag alert, right? Or a false flag attack. these are things that have been used. I mean, it's not like, I'm sure anywhere someone has taken these things and conspirized them, but false flag is a tactic where I make something happen over here with the intent of disguising the actual source of it so that we can blame something else, right? Or so we can push something else through here. So like, I mean, we do, and if you don't think we're capable of that, right? We do this to children. I mean, we do this every day in our daily lives. We're like, let's do car sales, for instance. You don't need the car place to run your credit through their fucking 60 like financial partners when you go get a car.
Yeah.
But they make you feel like they do, like they can get you a better deal so that they can get paid from their partners. Because if like you can just go to your bank and be like, I'm trying to get a car, they'll give you the money, you walk in, boom.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's not an attack, but there's an on purpose effort to say, hey, look, so that you take advantage of this over here. Right.
Yeah.
So like we do that all the time. And so if you go look at that, false flag attacks happen all the time, and there's actually redacted files of us doing certain not on ours. I don't think I've seen any, but just false flags around the tag where we'll do something. It was actually us, just so we can pass something through or get something else in.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just like, I don't know who. I honestly, I feel like our president. I know our president, the individual, is just a figurehead. Call it whoever you want, Illuminati. Like but I do think there's influential people who humans are also very, very powerful in their ability to reason ourselves into decisions, right? Especially intellectuals, people who think we're smart. I know I could reason myself into robbing a bank, killing some, like if necessary, right? Like, you can kind of say, well, for the greater good, or what I think is good, can be the good for us. These casualties are.
There's a good book by Dostoevsky, Russian author. I'm blanking on what it's called now. Not Brothers Karamazov. It's I'm looking it up. Sorry. But essentially the book, it's a fictional story, but in the book, where's it at? Crime and Punishment, it's called. And one of the main characters in the book, he sort of sets up this scenario where his sister is more or less like a slave to this woman. This woman is like an absolute bitch, like treats her sister terribly, steals from her, doesn't feed her enough. And then like with her own family, the woman like, steals shit from them. Like basically just no redeeming, he paints this person with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And so the main character in the story goes and kills her, frees her sister, takes her money, and is able to like, I think he like gives it to charity or something like that. Like he doesn't even profit off of the thing. Like it's basically just this perfect storm of like, he tried to do the best thing, and it just so happened like almost like talked himself into murdering this woman. And the book sort of, among other things, it's a really complicated, like intense read. It's great. But he's sort of haunted by that act his whole life. And so it sort of taps into the there's something very fundamental about not like murdering, like taking life away is very, it doesn't fit with human nature very well. It doesn't sit well. And so that's like the first thing that I think of when you bring that up is like you can convince yourself of so many things and like think that this is the right thing.
Right.
It's weird how there's these certain fundamental things that are like innately human that just like doesn't ever sit well with our conscience.
Yeah, and like so that like I don't know, those are just all my thoughts on it that make me go, it just leans. And then here's
Yeah.
the other thing, if people don't remember this, and there's been kind of a scrubbing of this as well. When they first came out, we were very quick, relatively quick, to pin this on Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, hold on. It was first Saddam Hussein, and then we got rid of him, and then Osama bin Laden took the lead.
well, so this is what actually happened. It was first Osama bin Laden. He came out and first also go look at terrorists, and what their whole belief system is, not only to incite terror, but to also let you know, yeah, it was us. Like it's fear mongering. That's the whole purpose of it. It's not like covert operations for terrorists.
Yeah.
So, and he says no. He denies it. Like you said, later in 2004 or 5, after Saddam Hussein, he says, oh yeah. But more importantly, the first thing when he says no, that it wasn't him, which doesn't make sense, right, for a terrorist to do, he says he would encourage the American people to look in the face of their own government for answers. That was his response to this. Now, again, not only do terrorists, like even if they were going to be like, hey, we're not going to tell them right now because we got another one planning, which is usually the only reason they don't take claim is when they have a second thing planned. And we're going to tell them later. They don't go and say, hey, look at your own government.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other reason that's super suspicious is if you go and look up Osama bin Laden's life, he was a very trusted CIA asset of America.
Wow.
Wait, hold on. Like an asset for us.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, like I said, I don't know who. I 100% don't think George Bush had to me, it takes too many moving parts. But it was an inside job. Whoever you want to say is on the inside job, that's between you and you. I don't.
Sure. There's just a lot of red flags.
Dude, when I just sat with myself and like just the plane stuff, just the plane shit alone just doesn't make any sense. And then everything that was moved and changed because of it. And I have to, I know we're going to wrap up soon, but I'm going to ask my dad and I'll send you this name. There was a gentleman, and I can't remember his name, who was a part of what some people would maybe probably consider the quote unquote Illuminati, right?
Okay.
Now, that has kind of turned into this big kind of woo-woo thing. My understanding, and my dad told me about this as a kid, this is a much more concept that a group of very powerful people who meet together and just make decisions on where they think the future. That happens every single day on every aspect of life, right? We're doing it in a podcast, it happens all across. So that makes sense to me. But as the more powerful you are, you can actually make some shit happen, right? We took on, solving road potholes and, poverty. We have no real power to implement things on those like that. But there was a gentleman there, and I can't remember his name. My dad will tell me.
Make sure you send that to me.
Who had talked, it was in those high levels, and then basically what do they call it, diffracted or I don't know. Just like what is it when you he's just like, I'm done with these, like left, rejected it. I don't know.
Okay.
Defected basically from that.
Okay.
But he goes and talks about that and says that they had discussions on how to control, just like we were saying, like how to, control the population through, mass messaging and media, and talked about talks of, now again, I don't know if this is necessarily whatever, right? But it would have talks about how to have the steps to having a one world government, right? That's controlled by a few people. And what the steps would that to be? Well, first things you have to do in that is you have to destabilize the most powerful first. People don't realize that if I'd say like us and Russia were destabilized, there's not really much fight from anyone else. Like everyone else is like, if America were really to be, and someone just like fucked us up, everyone else is just going to be like, yeah, you're like, you got America. We stand no chance. Right.
Yeah.
So you destabilize that country first. And he talks
like
about
China's in that at that
right.
point
I put
right
China
now.
in there. There's steps to destabilizing a country and all these things, and how to limit the pushback on that. And one of the big things he talks about was that in a place like America, you need to disarm the people. That's like one of the main steps that have to happen before that can move forward, among other things. The final one has something to do with like collapsing the economy, right? The financial devaluate, like devaluing their money, basically.
Yeah.
But like before,
which
right. So
that might be for the next episode.
Right. So I'm gonna give the guy's name in, because this is all you can look up all this stuff. But
yeah.
And he talked about how do you get that to happen in a country like that? And he talks about the use of false flag attacks, right? Either the curation of, or because they do media as well, the playing up of incidents to push those things through. And I'm just like, all right, well, we saw those same steps like we just talked about happen in 9/11, where, and then, you see, and there's always been like, since then, school shootings always happen, but there's just this more and more push all of a sudden in the media.
Well, here's the thing.
It's more gruesome. Sandy Hook.
Here's the thing is that I'm glad you bring that up, but also this humanprogress.org, they all the time post on Twitter like different like statistics on mass shootings. It's actually down. Like over the past, I think it like from like the 90s till 2010s, it was down. It shot up just a teeny bit, and then it went right back down. It was like overall it's way less, but it's getting 10 times the coverage.
Right. And basically he talks about like you can't, he talks, and I gotta find this. I remember having these conversations with my dad, and I'll send it to you, but talks about how part of it is you can't go in, you can try, but you can't really go in and take it from people. Not just the guns, you can't take their rights for them. You have to get them to offer up their rights. And so if that's part of your plan, like that's on anything, that's how you get a mass population, is you should like, oh man, this is so bad over here. Like we would have never before the 9/11 attacks been like, yeah, we're subject to surveillance and, let it strip us down at TSA and like all these things. But under fear, you can get a majority to say this bad, look how bad this is. And to keep playing it up and say, hey, we need to make some real changes. This is what we're going to do instead. And the people will give up their rights.
And then everyone feels like, oh, I did great. I did a good
right. That's the only way you can do it. And so I just think that's very interesting. And some of the things that he talked about, the steps, you can see some of it play out in things. And to me, that's just, like you said, gun control is one of them. Now, again, I own one gun. I got to conceal and carry just because I can. And really just for me and my family, right? It sits there. If somebody really wants to come and is an idiot and break in here, I want to be in a position like I could probably beat your ass. But why? If I just put 2 holes in your chest and wait for the cops to come. I have a wife and kids, so that's why I have it. But
if they have a gun and you don't, you're fucked. Period.
Right.
I'm gonna have a gun.
And my wife doesn't like them, right? And her big thing, and neither does my mother-in-law and stuff. And why do you need a gun? Like you said, and I say that same thing. I say, well, no one's gonna break in here. I said, yeah, I hope that they never do. Just like I hope I never get in a car accident, but I have car insurance.
Yeah.
Like it's just like risk management. So I'm not, some big gun carrying person, but okay. But I could see the benefit in people not having guns for the steps that he's talking about, right? For you, because if there was push of that or military, like whatever, the citizens would bear arms, which is also what our country's founded on, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing that makes us very different than many other countries, that it's actually in our constitutions that our citizens have the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
So to me, all that stuff put together, and I just say, like I said, it just leans more to me where I go like, there's a lot higher chance you put whatever percentage you want on it that it was more of an inside job to move, an agenda and get some things, carried out.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems much more likely than
Some dudes that live in a dirt poor nation and hijacked 4 planes simultaneously
and no one responded.
That part just like no one will ever be able to tell me different. And like I said, I don't.
Yeah. Well, it's the same shit as like when Epstein got killed. You're telling me, oh, okay, all the guards were gone. Okay. All the cameras magically turned off. Okay. And he hung himself, but his clavicle bone or whatever snapped in the only way that's conducive to a strangling. Okay. All right. He killed himself.
That's what
I really think we're that dumb.
That's what I see now. And that what you just said is like, I'm like, to me, I look at certain things. I'm like, they don't even they don't care. They're that far into whatever, where they're just like, most people aren't going to question this. And you guys everyone's pretty much so dumb that like,
well, and it was here and gone like that. That's a big deal that happened. And it's all over now.
It's not a big deal if people don't understand who he is. And the narrative would just push us, he's this nasty little sex offender. There's a documentary on Netflix that talks about, it's the Epstein documentary.
The Filthy Rich?
I think he has a Filthy Rich episode. I think he has an independent one too now. That's just about him. That's like 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
That we watch. Is it just from Filthy
Rich? On Netflix. I think it's called Filthy Rich.
Okay. So, but I watched that. Well, if you actually look at it, they just touch on it. There was this big question on how Epstein created his wealth because the dude didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, in that documentary, they're saying he like lied to people about.
So this is what they said he would do.
College degree and stuff.
Yeah, he lied to get into these things, but I mean, the dude had an amazing amount of wealth, and he was also close to all these really important and wealthy people. So, and they kind of talk about, strangely enough, Les Wexner, who's here in Ohio, basically created New Albany, basically owns half of Columbus. But anyway, how he got really close to him all of a sudden, and Les Wexner made large payouts to him. And at one point even lets him basically stay and have his huge estate out in New Albany.
Yeah.
And I think Wexner just said, oh yeah, it was like for some services or stuff that he provided. Like there's.
Yeah.
So here's what they also.
Vague as fuck.
Right. What they also about that detriment in that documentary is that on Epstein Island, that there was cameras everywhere, hidden cameras.
Yeah.
And so my understanding of it is that how he created his wealth is he lied his way into some rooms and would basically get important and wealthy people
trap them in some blackmail.
And yes, he blackmailed his way through a lot of people, right? And there was, some, news on like all the names that were on here and all the people who took trips to islands and people who all of a sudden, like when it first came out, were like, oh yeah, I think I kind of knew him, which I mean, a perfect example, the Clintons, right? Donald Trump, who all of a sudden were just like, oh yeah, I mean, I kind of knew him from so-and-so, but then they got pictures hanging out with them and
like in their house.
Yeah, them being on his private jet, not like a big chart, like where there's just 12 of us hanging out several times. Like, so you knew, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, he had all this video everywhere. And I think when they season 1, like there was just this huge surveillance room.
Yeah.
And so blackmailed people. So then you tell me, oh yeah, and he just died. He strangled himself. Okay, well now again, there's too many people, and knowing what he actually did and how he secured his wealth and how there's a trail of just large payments made out to him for.
Yeah. So you think he somehow got some blackmail on Wexner, and that's how he got that? That was like his initial.
Yeah, Wexner was his initial, like one of his first, like really big ones. I don't think on that. I think he has a whole list of people because he's throwing these parties and these things, and And I think part of it too, the fact that he was so big into sex trafficking, which, as horrible as sex trafficking is, you can just go do the research for yourself. Why is it every time there's a big bust that very powerful people usually, like, go look at how many politicians had to step down or things like that because of, oh, they got a case for sex, like, that's more heavily than people think. And so I think that there's a interesting, because me, it's like, well, how do you get very important people who are in those situations how do you blackmail them, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the simplest ways, and this happened with the Boris dude or the prime minister, someone in like England, where they're still trying to like get them to basically extradite him to this for trial here. But well, if I can get you around, get you tipsy, get you partied up, and get you around some girls that are doing some stuff, with or for whatever, right? And then I tell you they're underage, whether you knew or not. Now, that could be quite, there's some people out there that, say everyone knew that they oh, that's just what he did. Right.
Yeah.
But that's one hell of a blackmail to me, man. That's a case. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. Like, but to me, like I said, when you see these, like, say he goes to jail, well, his only chip, right, was he was going to talk. That was the only thing he could do.
Yeah.
And before he can do that, he's dead under really, like, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I don't. But like I said, people gotta go look at that stuff for themselves. But when I look at that, it's just like, I think that, like I said, over that curation of time, because the dude didn't do anything in his life. Like, he got close to these people, and and like, you just get information, and that's how he, made his money. And people don't want that out there, right? And I think it's more just some, oh, maybe you had sex with a 14-year-old, right? I mean, that could be bad enough for some people, but I think it's even worse than that. But interesting stuff.
For sure. Bottom line, think for yourself. Don't seek opinions, seek facts, and then make your own opinions.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself, and don't believe all the hype.
And stay away from weird dudes that want to have a party with you.
Yes. Well, and as like I said, the more that you develop yourself and your self-awareness and all that shit, the more like keen and the more aware you are of other people that are fucked up, and you can just go ahead and steer away from them.
Look, can we just add that he's kind of like smart as shit. Like, outside of like messing with girls, like if his plan was just to like get close to people and blackmail them to be rich as fuck and not do anything, dude did a pretty fucking phenomenal job.
Yeah. Well, like I've heard things about Epstein that he might have been like an operative for other countries inside our country. Like, he was giving info to like China or Russia or whatever.
I don't think my understanding was like, I couldn't like the take that he wasn't necessarily an, I guess, operative. As soon as you sell it, you can become an operative. But like you said, he just got information. Like, you just get people in rooms talking, and like he just collected information, blackmailed people with it, and then you just sell it to the higher bidder past that too.
Somehow just he's like, it's like the mad scientist. He's just too smart for his own good.
Yeah. But
all right. Wow. I feel like we heated up at the last half was like just fire.
Yeah, I'll make sure I text my dad to send you that thing, because that'll be I think you'll be interested to watch that, and then I'll try to remember and find that Netflix documentary. I don't know if it's still.
I was gonna say while you were talking, I was looking at Netflix 9/11 documentaries, and I didn't see anything.
I gotta figure out if Bryn remembers or if it was new. I remember we just like watched it one time, and it was interesting. But yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, brother.
Good stuff. Appreciate you. Peace.